Welcome to my channel, C.S. Lewis Spirit. In today's video, I want you to take a deep breath and ask yourself something you've never dared to ask before. What if you're not broken? What if you're not depressed, but chosen? You see, there's a strange silence that lives in the minds of some people. It's not sadness. It's not despair. It's something deeper, something older, a stillness that doesn't scream, but knows. If you ever felt like you're drowning in a room full of people, if you've ever looked at the world and thought, this isn't how it's supposed to be, then maybe, just maybe, you're not suffering from a disorder. Maybe you're carrying a gift. Tonight's story begins not in a hospital or with a diagnosis, but with a quiet young man named Ezra. To most people, Ezra was invisible. He didn't party. He didn't gossip. He never followed trends. He just watched, observed, and when he spoke, people listened, not because he was loud, but because his words carried weight, almost like they weren't just his words. But no one knew that Ezra had been waking up at 3:33 a.m. every night for months. Always the same time. No alarm, no noise, just this sudden opening in the night, as if something or someone was calling him. At first, he thought he was losing his mind. He Googled everything: insomnia, depression, spiritual awakening, even signs of early psychosis. Nothing made sense. Doctors told him he needed more sunlight. Friends said he needed a vacation. But Ezra knew deep down this wasn't random. This was intentional. He started noticing patterns, not just in his own life, but in the lives of others who were different. People who always felt like outcasts. People who couldn't stay comfortable in a world full of lies. People who carried a strange pain that had no name. And the more he spoke to them, the more he realized they all had the same signs, the same symptoms, the same pull towards something invisible, something divine. Were they mentally ill, or were they messengers? In ancient times, the line between madness and prophecy was razor thin. The prophets were never popular. They were never wealthy. They weren't the loudest voices, but they were the ones who saw through the noise. They were the ones who wept when no one else could feel. And Ezra, he was starting to believe he might be one of them. But just as Ezra began to embrace this truth, something strange happened. One night, after another 3:33 a.m. awakening, he found a note on his window, a single torn page, written in handwriting he didn't recognize. It said, "You're not alone. They'll try to silence you next." Who wrote it? How did they know? And what exactly were they warning him about? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear next may change the way you see your pain forever. You might realize that these signs, the ones that made you feel cursed, were never a curse at all. They were a calling. Ezra held the note in his hand like it was burning. His heart thudded in his chest, louder than the silence outside. He looked around, but the street was empty. No footsteps. No shadows, just the cold night air pressing against the window like a warning. He turned the note over. Nothing on the back. No signature. Just that one chilling sentence. "You're not alone. They'll try to silence you next." He didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. All he could think about was who left the message. And why now? Was someone watching him? Had they been following him all along? Or was it someone like him? Someone who knew what it felt like to live with questions too big for the world to answer? Over the next few days, Ezra began looking for more signs. And that's when things started getting even stranger. At the grocery store, an old woman stopped her cart next to his and whispered, "Don't ignore the dreams." He didn't even know her. She didn't explain, just walked away like nothing happened. At a bookstore downtown, he picked up a random journal. And on the very first page, written in faded pencil, were the words, "The awakened ones are being tested." Was this paranoia? Or was the universe trying to speak? He started writing everything down, every moment that felt off, every number that kept repeating, every coincidence that felt too sharp to ignore. He noticed the same numbers again and again: 111, 333, 777. He heard music playing in his head before he heard it out loud. Sometimes, he'd think of a person, and they would text within minutes. Little things, small cracks in reality. but they were becoming too frequent to explain away. Ezra didn't feel depressed anymore. He felt watched, not by people, but by something higher. And yet, with that feeling came a heavy weight, like he was carrying a message, but didn't know who it was for, or what it even meant. He stopped sharing his thoughts with friends. Whenever he tried, they just looked at him with worry in their eyes. They told him to rest, to take care of his mental health, but no one really listened. No one understood the quiet chaos that was blooming inside him. And then one night, as he stared at the note on his desk again, he heard a soft knock at the door. Not loud, just enough to be real. But when he opened it, no one was there, only a second note, pinned to the floor with a small stone. It read, "You have 7 days, then the vision will come." Ezra stared at the second note, his fingers trembling around the edges of the paper. 7 days? What kind of vision? And why him? He wanted to believe it was just a prank, maybe someone messing with his head. But deep down, he already knew it wasn't a joke. It felt too precise, too perfectly timed. The feeling in his chest wasn't fear exactly. It was more like a warning from somewhere inside his soul. He couldn't explain it, but it felt ancient. He didn't tell anyone about the note this time. Not his sister, not even Noah, his closest friend, because part of him was beginning to realize this wasn't happening to him. It was happening through him, and not everyone could come along. Over the next few days, Ezra's world began to shift. Technology started glitching around him. Phones freezing, streetlights flickering when he walked under them. At first, he thought it was all in his head, but then he noticed the way animals reacted to him. A stray dog followed him for 3 blocks and refused to leave. Birds gathered on telephone wires above his apartment, sitting still like sentries. The world around him wasn't breaking. It was responding. He also started seeing someone, a woman in a red scarf, appearing in random places. At the bus stop, near the cafe, across the library. She never approached him, just watched. And every time he tried to get closer, she vanished into the crowd. Was she real or part of the vision to come? As the countdown moved toward the 7th day, Ezra could feel it. Something was approaching. A choice, a revelation, or maybe something darker. And all the while, a question kept echoing in his head. What if depression was never the enemy, but the disguise of calling? By the 6th night, Ezra hadn't slept in almost 2 days. Not because he couldn't, because he didn't want to. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt himself slipping into something heavy and strange. Not a dream, not quite a nightmare. A space, a waiting room between this world and something else. Faces without names. Symbols he'd never seen before. Whispers in a language that didn't exist in any book, but still made perfect sense to him. The woman in the red scarf had started appearing closer now. She wasn't just across the street anymore. She was steps away. At the train station, their eyes finally met. Her gaze wasn't threatening. It was sad, like she already knew what he was about to face. Ezra followed her, through alleys, around corners, past a wall with strange writing that glowed faintly under the moonlight. She never spoke, just kept walking, until they reached an old church, abandoned, cracked, covered in vines. She pointed toward the door and disappeared into the dark, without a word. Inside, the air was thick, cold. Ezra stepped forward, every bone in his body screaming to turn back. But he couldn't. Something was pulling him in. On the altar lay a 3rd note. This one was different, longer. It read, "You were never depressed. You were being emptied so the message could fill you. The time is almost here. But you must choose, reveal what you've seen or stay silent and live untouched." Suddenly, the stained glass behind him shattered without warning. Wind rushed in, but there was no storm. Just pressure, a shift in the atmosphere. The ground beneath him trembled slightly, like something was waking up beneath it. Ezra turned slowly, heart pounding, as a 4th note began to slide across the floor on its own, straight toward his feet. Ezra crouched slowly, the echo of the shattered glass still ringing in his ears. He picked up the 4th note with trembling fingers. The paper was cold, damp like it had been buried underground. The message was short, but it hit like a lightning strike. Your vision is not yours alone. One of them walks among you, and they've already seen what comes next. He read it again, then again. Who was them? Had someone else already received the same signs, the same whispers, the same painful isolation, disguised as depression? His mind immediately raced to Noah, his only real friend, the one person who always said, "You feel too much, bro, that's your curse." But what if it wasn't a curse? What if Noah wasn't just a friend, but another chosen one? Or worse, someone meant to stop him? The room grew colder. Ezra could feel it in his bones, like something old had awakened inside the church walls. He turned to leave, but the door had shut on its own, locked. The windows were boarded tight. He wasn't trapped by accident. He was meant to be there. Then he heard it, a soft scratching, from under the altar. Slow, deliberate. Ezra stepped back, his heart hammering in his throat. The floor